Hey, what's up, guys? I want to do another story time video. But in addition to telling you this brief story, um, this story occurred when I went on a road trip with my grandfather. This was my father's father. And I have probably 100 different stories just on this road trip. It was crazy. And I'm going to briefly read off a list. I'm looking through some old pictures on my computer. That's what kind of sparked the idea of telling you a story. The one story I'm going to tell you about, I think is kind of funny. But I took pictures. Basically what happened was this: my grandfather traveled all around the world. Most of his life he traveled. I mean, he retired at I think 40 something. He was a postmaster for the postal service for many years, and then towards the end they tried to screw him out of his pension, and he sued them, and he won. He got a nice fat check. So he built himself a house out in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. Lived there for many years. Traveled all around the world. And he's been most U.S. states except for 10 different states that were all up on the northwest part of the U.S. Okay, so he wanted to make one. He's getting older. He couldn't really go out and travel for months and months at a time like he used to. But he had a goal to go and visit the rest of the states so he can say he's been to all 50 states. This was like his personal goal as a traveler. So he was going to go out by himself. And I remember he was telling my father on the phone, I heard what's going on. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool if I can go. Just kind of joking around. And he overheard and he thought about it. And he said, yeah, why not? Why can't you go? At this point, I just graduated high school. Like kind of a bum. I don't have a job or anything. I'm just sitting around the house doing nothing. So I didn't really have any responsibilities. My grandfather thought, all right, well, at least I won't be alone because he's getting older. I guess he was kind of worried like something could happen to him. But at the same time, maybe he just wanted to bond with me. We never spent too much time together. I can tell stories just about, I went to spend a week with him once, and that was like insane, both in bad ways and in good ways. It was a lot of fun. One of the coolest moments of my entire life happened when I stayed with him the first time for that week. I was about 12 years old. It was the first time I ever rode the ATV. And this was like a big deal to me, riding Grandpa's quad. Quads were so cool. And he taught me how to ride it properly and stuff. And I worked my butt off all day long, every day. This wasn't like a vacation for me. This was like a become a man kind of experience. And I was like, doing all kinds of landscaping work and this, that. I mean, sweating my butt off. The most work I ever did in my life. And my treat at the end of the day was I got an hour to ride the quad around the property. And I remember the second time I rode it, second time in my life I rode a quad, I was just the coolest kid in the world. And I'm up on the hill there, all by myself. It's like a big long stretch. It's kind of a field where they grow corn, but there's no corn growing right now. It's the off season. They have to skip like every couple of years or whatever, so the soil doesn't get crappy. Um, and I gunned it right. And I got the thing up to like maybe 40 miles an hour, which doesn't seem like that fast, but first of all, no helmet because he didn't have a helmet because he doesn't go fast on it. He just uses it for the property. So that was dumb to begin with. And there's gopher holes everywhere. So if you hit a gopher hole, you go flying off the thing, which I have done a couple times. Thank God I wasn't going too fast. Anyway, so I'm flying down, and it feels like I'm doing 100 with no helmet and the wind blowing in your face. 40 miles an hour is fast. And I peer over, and I see a buck. I mean a huge, like 10-point buck. All right. And as I'm driving, he's like over here, and as I'm driving past, it spooked him, so he ran. But he ran alongside with me, like parallel. And me riding 40 miles an hour on this quad and looking over and seeing this big, huge buck just gunning it, just keeping the exact same pace that I have, it was the coolest, like, connection with nature I've ever had in my life. And that's just one story from when I spent the week with him. But anyway, yeah, I spent a month with him on the road, going to all these different states. It was an amazing time in my life. It was an opportunity that was I was very lucky to have. Um, but I'm going to tell you a couple of places we've been just to see if there's any interest in me telling more stories about this trip because I literally have 100 or more stories when we went on this trip together. I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, so many funny things happened, strange things, stupid things that would make you laugh. I just had an awesome, awesome time. It was really an experience. But today I'll tell you a very brief story. The very first day we went on this trip, my grandfather, first of all, let me back up a little bit here. He bought a brand new car just to go on this trip. Okay, he bought a Pontiac G6, all right, when they first came out. And It was green. It's actually Philadelphia Eagles green, and that was his favorite football team, the Eagles. So because he heard that color, that's the color he had to pick. Anyway, so it's kind of a sports car. It's a coupe, 2-door, and it's pretty ritzy looking. It's a beautiful car, but it's not a comfortable car. It's not a car you would take on a road trip for a month. All right, and we did sleep in the car a couple nights, okay, and that's for a whole different story. That's the first time I was introduced to a glory hole, which I'm not going to go into details right now. But some of you guys are cracking up, and other people are just really don't have any idea what I just said. But the people who do know, yeah, a truck stop, yeah, that was that's its own story. Anyway, don't want to bring back those memories. Yeah, so he has this brand new like sports car, and the very first day, he wants to get a lot of ground. He wants to get out there. He doesn't want to like dilly around. So we drove. I mean, he picked me up. He didn't pick me up. I stayed at his house overnight, and we left at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, the butt crack of dawn. Got in the car and just head out. And we drove all day long until like 11:30 at night when we finally stopped. All right, but as we're driving, he would stop every now and then to pee. He was getting old. He had to pee all the time. So he'd stop at like every gas station. He'd fill up, tap it off. And the first stop we made, he brings back 2 coffees, okay? And he hands me a coffee. He goes, here, I got your coffee. And at this point, I drink coffee, but I drink it light and sweet, like candy. Coffee black was disgusting to me. I had to like make it like candy. Lots of sugar, lots of milk, So he hands me the coffee. I take a little sip of it, and I go, and then like I spit it all over the fresh, clean dashboard of this car. I'm thinking, oh my God. Because I wasn't ready for black coffee. I just assumed he knew how I took it. I'm like, it got all over the place. And I'm thinking, oh no, I just like totally ruined his interior on this car. All right, so now I'm like devastated. All right, because my grandfather, he has like a very old school mentality. Like he'd have no problem just giving me a backhand. I'm not his son, but he's that kind of a guy. Like just very old school, kind of crude, doesn't really show emotion, kind of a thing. He did on this trip, which was very nice, but just very like I totally respected him with every ounce of my being. I would never disrespect him, never talk back to him, never question anything. It was that kind of relationship. He was a stern grandfather. So I spit this coffee out. I'm like, oh my God, what's he gonna do? I'm like waiting for him to just give me a backhand or something. And he goes, like sighs, and he goes, it's okay. He said, I'm not gonna yell. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Whatever. So he goes to get out of the car. To go get napkins and stuff inside, and as he's getting out of the car, he spills the top pops off, and he spills his hot coffee all over the door, all over his lap, and because he got burned, he went and like threw it. Okay, so it like the whole interior of the car is filled with like all this coffee now, brand new car, and now he's like really steaming. All right, he goes to get the cup. He goes to pop up real quick. He smacks the back of his head on the top of the door frame for the driver's side, and I'm trying not to laugh because it really is funny to me at this point. I mean, I feel bad, but it's hilarious how this is happening. It's almost like something you see like Chris Farley and David Spade do in a movie together. Just one thing after another, and just finally everything's said and done. He went, got some napkins. We cleaned up a little bit, and he just started laughing. He said, "Well, can only go downhill from here." Or uphill. Downhill? Can only get better. That's basically what he said. It can only get better from here now that we had this. But that was the beginning of our trip, okay? And we had a whole month worth of stories. But anyway, the story I want to tell you, which I'll get to in a second because I procrastinate. Let me first tell you a bunch of places we went, all right? Because I have pictures and, all kinds of stories. But I want to know if there's interest in me talking about these different places, because every single place I went, there are stories about everything. Not just boring stories like, we saw a lot of museums and monuments and stuff, but I mean, I have crazy stories of like I have a story the first time in my entire life, okay, that I ever pooped in my pants. Yes, I did. Not full blown, not like kindergarten, log fell out of my shorts, nothing like that, but definitely a little turtle head made an appearance. It was one of the scariest moments of my life, and it involved a buffalo. We'll leave it at that. Another story, when I seriously thought I was going to die, I was going to be eaten alive by a crazy hillbilly while on the Oregon Trail. Okay, I actually rode in a covered wagon on the tracks that the original wagons, went on the Oregon Trail. All right, now mind you, in the game, the video game Oregon Trail, and someone commented recently about this, like the Oregon Trail ruled. Like when computers first came out, that was the only game you could play. And I said, no, it sucks. Every time I played that game, I got diarrhea and I died. And I thought that was ridiculous. But anyway, yes, I was on the actual Oregon Trail. And by the way, the same camp that we ended up staying over there, that's where I thought I was going to die. It was definitely like the people I saw looked like something out of Wrong Turn, the movie. And it was truly like a genuine scary moment in my life where I thought, oh my God, they're going to chop me up with an axe and eat me. All right. But that very same place, those very same people cooked me for dinner the best steak I've ever had in my entire life. Okay. And then after the steak had the best ice cream I've had in my entire life. So, I mean, bar none. Okay. This steak was mooing up the road, that morning. Okay. Was butchered, prepared, and cooked for me that evening. Okay. Best steak I've ever had in my life. But I mean, I have like millions of stories about this stuff, but I can't just do a story time video of my trip because it would literally be hours long, okay? And I would be off in like 50 different directions. So I'm gonna tell you some of the places I went, and if there's really a specific interest or if a lot of people want to see one specific place, maybe I'll tell some stories. Some stories are funnier than others, but anyway, just real quick, some of the landmarks I put on my phone. I'm looking at my photos on my screen here in different folders, so I can tell you kind of where I went. I went to Boise, Idaho. We stayed in Boise, Idaho, which is actually the cleanest city I've ever been to in my life. However, I have not been to a lot of cities, so leave it at that. But it was really beautiful, and that's where I saw the library with the exclamation point, and there's a story behind that. I went to Chimney Rock, which is pretty cool. The Crazy Horse Memorial was amazing. This is when we also saw Mount Rushmore, which is kind of a dud. But when I went to Mount Rushmore, I kind of told my grandfather, I said, this is it. Like you see it in movies all the time. You go there and you're like, oh, okay. The first time I think I saw Mount Rushmore on TV was in the movie Richie Rich. You ever see that movie? The parents are rich and they have like their vault inside the heads. Anyway, oh no, I think they had their own mountain of Mount Rushmore, but regardless, we were there and I thought, man, this is kind of like, whatever. We went out of our way to visit this place, and I heard some Chinese lady was next to us, and she was speaking very broken English, but she kept tugging on my shirt. It's like really cute, old, like, not cute like, oh, that girl's cute. It was kind of like old, like, oh, you kind of feel bad for her, kind of cute old person. Old people be cute sometimes. Like I don't know, old man with a cane, just like really California raisin looking thing, and just, like, oh, that guy's cute. Doesn't mean you're gay. You don't want to sleep with the old man. You just think he's a cute old man. Anyway, cute old Chinese woman. Tugging on my shirt and blah, 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 blah. I don't know what she was saying. My grandfather understood that she was saying something about an Indian. She kept saying Indian rock, Indian rock. So we're like, what? And she happened to be with her husband, who was full-blown white guy, who was a ginger. He had a red hair. I like gingers. They're extra fun sometimes. And he was like just total straight white guy, but he had this foreign wife who spoke very broken English. Anyway, he finally came over. He was going to get sandwiches from me. He has these 2 sandwiches. And he's talking to her. And he's like talking in her language to her, but I can tell, even though I can't speak the language, I can totally tell he's not doing a good job at it. There's like no communication. He must have ordered this woman on the internet. And they were also yelling at each other too. Apparently he got the wrong sandwich. Anyway, so the guy was saying, because my grandfather was like, what's your wife trying to tell us? She's been trying to tell my grandson something. She's tugging on her shirt. He said that there was a memorial up the road, which is like 100 times better. And it was a Crazy Horse Memorial. And I knew nothing about it, neither my grandfather. And we went there, and we had such a better time there and learned so much about it. Put it this way, in the Crazy Horse Memorial, it's not even done yet. It's been worked on for the last 100 years, and it's still going. It's like not even halfway done. It's so massive in comparison. And when it's all done, it's going to be basically Crazy Horse, the famous, pointing to his land, blah, 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 his upper torso and head and stuff and arm. And he's on a horse, and the horse is basically like the whole horse head in the front of its chest. When this thing's all said and done, it's so big that all 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore can fit just in the eyes of Crazy Horse. That's how massive this thing is. So I had like one of the best times there, and I wouldn't even know it if this Chinese woman wasn't tugging on my shirt. So that's a whole story within itself. Anyway, I went to Dinosaur National Monument, which was cool, but not really a whole lot of stories there. There's one funny story, but anyway, I went to Jewel Cave, which is pretty cool because I almost got stuck in the Spelunking block. What is that, you may ask? Well, here's a picture of it. Okay, so what are you looking at? A little concrete square. Well, in Jewel Cave, which I believe is like the second largest cave in the world, you can do spelunking, which sounds very funny and it makes you want to say it again. Spelunking. Go ahead, say it. No one's looking. Anyway, spelunking is basically exploring through caves, right? But if you take the spelunking tour, okay, there's like two versions. There's a short tour for like people with asthma and really fat people who just can't do much. You walk like 10 feet in and go, oh, cool, and then you leave before you start running out of breath. And then there's the actual like spelunking where you go down like a mile and a half in the cave and stuff. But there's this one point before the end, it gets really narrow. So in order to be able to even go on the tour, they have to have one of their employees physically see you crawl through the space in that block, okay? And I'm going to read the little sign here. You don't have the picture, but I'm looking at another picture of it. It says, this block is your ticket to adventure. By squeezing through, you qualify for the Jewel Cave National Monument Spelunking Tour. The block is 8.5 inches high and 24 inches wide, okay? Now, as you see some of these pictures of me, I was obviously a lot fatter, okay? I was pushing 340 pounds. I was not fitting into the spelunking box, okay? My left thigh couldn't fit through this hole. But I looked at it and thought, oh yeah, I could fit through there. So I go in head first, like the fat dummy I was, and I put my arms in. I'm like, oh, this is fine. I'm trying to like shimmy in there. And my fat head almost got stuck. I turn it sideways, and my grandfather, I can hear him laughing, like, because he knows there's no way, okay, that this is going to work. But he's like, all right, fine. He didn't say anything. God bless him. By the way, he did pass away a couple years ago, and he's missed greatly. He was a very nice guy. But anyway, I hear him laughing at me, and I'm turning my head to make it fit. And then I went to turn to say something to him, and I kind of turned my head back straight, and it got stuck for like a split second. And I panicked. I'm like, huh. Because I'm thinking, oh my God, they're gonna. And I like in that split second, I was picturing like a fire department coming and like the jaws of life trying to get my head out of this thing. It's ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there's that story. Obviously, I just told you, but besides that, there's nothing really else special about Jewel Cave. Mount Rushmore, I went to Nevada City, which is pretty cool. Some of the oldest buildings, from back in the day. The Oregon Trail there's plenty of stories of when I went on the Oregon Trail, so maybe I'll talk about those. Pikes Peak was pretty cool. First time I've ever been on a cog rail. Went up, I forget what it is. Maybe I have a picture with some information. And I don't. I have all kinds of pamphlets and stuff I saved, but it's, I don't know, like 4,000 feet high or something. It's so high that, like, by the time you get up there, you're extremely dizzy and lightheaded. Like, I felt like, I snorted some unknown powder or something. I mean, I was so discombobulated up there. I definitely have some funny stories of what I did when I was on top. Okay. That usually ends well. Funny stories I did when I was on top. Anyway, we also went to the prehistoric Indian village, which was very cool. A couple stories there. Shoshone Falls, Twin Falls. Those are just scenic things. Nothing funny happened there. Snake River Canyon, same thing, funny. The Battle of Little Bighorn. Some very cool stories. Not necessarily funny, but cool. Yellowstone National Park. Plenty of stories when I went there. The Corn Palace, which was uninteresting. It's basically this palace made of corn. All right, then we went to a bunch of museums. Pony Express, Pioneer Museum, Pioneer Archway, Museum of 76 Rodeo, Lewis and Clark Interpretive, which was very cool. And I learned how to play a Jewish harp, which was awesome. Shoshone Indian Museum. I could tell you about a story time about the first time I ever gambled. Okay, because at this point I'm 18. I can go out and I can gamble at some of these places. I never gambled in my life. Okay, and the first time I ever gambled was on an Indian reservation, a Shoshone Indian reservation. That's where I got those little pair of authentic booties. I think I showed those in another video. Anyway, yeah, I got little Indian shoes, like handmade. And I have some funny stories of gambling for my first time. But anyway, tons of museums and crap. What else? I'm just looking through some of these pictures. I have a bunch of scenic pictures. Anyway, who knows how long I've been blabbing so far. So the overall gist here is that I've been a lot of places when I was traveling with my grandfather, and I have a lot of funny stories. Let me know if you'd like to hear more about it. If not, I have plenty of other stories that are completely unrelated to this. But I will tell you my one story now. Yes, believe it or not, the video is actually starting now. Can you believe it? Please be nice and post that in the comments. Someone always does. All right, so here's the story. And this has to do with smoking, okay, which is funny now. I mean, it has to do with cigarette smoke, which is different. But at this point in my life, I didn't smoke anything. Well, that's not true. This is when I was still a pothead. But I didn't like cigarettes at all, okay? So let me paint this picture for you. We're driving out, and this is happening most of the trip, okay, which is very funny. But basically, think about, I'm in this sports car. It's a small car. It's uncomfortable. It's cramped. I mean, it really was not comfortable at all. It's just basically a sporty car. It's not built for comfort. At least this one wasn't. And so we're driving out, and I'm uncomfortable. I'm constantly moving around. I'm big and fat too, by the way. Don't forget, I'm huge. And it's like 110 degrees. Okay, my grandfather has the air conditioning on in the car. All right, windows are shut completely, airtight. Even if the windows were down, the air is too hot. You know when it gets so hot outside that even having the window down, it's like hot air blowing. You're like, oh my God, it just sucks the life out of you. So there's no way we can even have fresh air. Windows are shut, okay? 110 degrees out. Inside, even with the air conditioning pumping, it's still kind of warm. It's so hot out that you can't really even get really ice cold inside, even though it's a brand new car. All right, so regardless, my grandfather is a chain smoker, all right? Practically lights the next cigarette with the first cigarette, all right? And one thing that just got under my skin so bad, God rest his soul, God rest his soul, yeah. Every time he got done with the pack, he'd crush it and say, another dead soldier. And I don't know why he said that, but it was really annoying because he smoked so much. Every hour or two, I'd hear another dead soldier, and he'd hand me the box, and I have to throw it in the glove box and throw it out at the next gas station. But it was like every time I heard that, it pierced my brain. I'm like, oh God. So anyway, now mind you, I still have full respect for this man, and I would never ever question anything. In addition to that, he's also paying for my entire month's trip. Okay, I don't feel like I'm even in a position to complain to him about anything. He's doing such a nice thing for me, so I can't complain, nothing like that, right? But he's puffing away, he's chain smoking, one after another, hotboxing this car, okay, with cigarette smoke. Not even just regular cigarette smoke. This man was very frugal, okay? If you don't know what that means, he was cheap. He was one cheap SOB. And he bought the cheapest cigarettes that money can buy. They were called Checkers. And I've never seen in my life except for at a gas station where he lived. It was called the Pump and Pantry. And when my family used to visit him, we used to always call it the Pump and Dump. Because basically we'd have our long trip when we came from Jersey, and we'd hop out, we'd go take a crap, pee, whatever you have to do, fill up the car. It was the Pump and Dump. But anyway, these cigarettes were called Checkers. They were $2 a pack, okay, when normal cigarettes were still $3.50 a pack, right? So they were cheap. And on the front, looked like a checkerboard. And they were horrific. They smelled worse, the worst cigarette I've ever smelled in my life. I don't like cigarette smoke at all, but this was really, really rank. So one after another, just such a thick cloud of smoke in the car that I look over, I could barely see them. It's literally that smoky. So I'm like, oh, I'm dying. I'm coughing. He doesn't take the hint. I'm like, coughing in his direction. He's talking to me. Maybe we'll go see him. I'm like, yeah, all right. But he doesn't get it. He doesn't care. So, or maybe he does get it. He just really didn't care. He's that kind of a guy. I don't care. I'm smoking. I'm doing you a favor taking on his chips. So whatever. So every now and then, okay, I just could not take it. I felt like I was going to puke. So I'd reach over and I'd tap the window. Okay, it had, automatic windows, electric windows, whatever. So I tapped the button once while I was coughing so he wouldn't hear me tap it. And it would crack the window just a little bit. So it would let some of the smoke out, because it was getting ridiculous. So I get in that verge where like I'm like, like I was gonna throw up, okay? But I can't complain him. I can't say, Grandpa, can you stop smoking? Who knows? Maybe if I said it once, he would have stopped. I have no idea, but I just didn't want to take the chance of upsetting him because he's doing such a nice thing. So every now and then, I'm like, I can't take it. I can't take it. I tap the window real quick. Just I cough so he wouldn't hear me touch the button, right? And it would crack the window. The problem is how these windows were. They had the guards on the outside, you know, and the thing, if it wasn't open at least a half an inch, like, because I'm tapping it, so because I didn't want him to see the window open. The very first time I did this, he said, "Oh, what'd you do? You know, did you open the window?" And I said, "Yeah, I opened the window. You know, it's getting a little hot." He's like, "Oh, it's even hotter outside. You can't open the window. You know, you got the air conditioning on." So he closed it. So now I can't let him know I'm opening the window, but I cannot take the smoke. So I hit the button. Thing cracks a little bit. But it cracks just enough where he can't see that it's open, but the thing starts whistling from the noise, okay? Because we're driving, like, some of these highways, we're doing, like, 95. There's no speed limits, you know, out, like, middle of Montana and stuff, you know? We're just booking. So it's like, like whistling. I was like, oh, crap. But he didn't notice right away, all right? So it'd go by for, like, maybe 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, because sometimes we had music on, sometimes we didn't, but I'd see him, like, have, like, a weird look, and he'd look over at the window, and he can't see that it's open because of how these guards are. And he'd check the button and he'd close it and it would stop whistling. This repeated literally hundreds of times the entire trip, okay? Where he'd be get in the car, be smoking, I can't take it, crack the window without him knowing, hit the button, and they would start whistling, you know? And this would literally happen, you know, 5, 6 times a day, every single day, the entire trip. Like by the middle of the trip, he's like, you know, there's got to be something with this window. It keeps whistling, you know? I'm going to have this car looked at when we get back. And to this day, I never told him. I never told him that, you know, look, I couldn't take the smoke. I was opening your window. He thought the car was broken. Something was wrong with it. But I still to this day, I laugh. I laugh at that story because, for one, it's funny. You got to admit, that's some funny stuff. I don't care who you are. That's funny right there. But, I mean, look, it's funny to me because I experienced it. Maybe to you it seems stupid. But in addition to just being kind of a funny thing, him just not knowing that it was me the whole time, and something as silly as if I asked him to not smoke in the car with the windows down, or the windows up rather, then maybe he would have actually done it. You know, maybe he would have listened to me. I don't know. I'll never know. But that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen or experienced. Anyway, I wanted to share it with you. Like I said, I'm kind of looking at pictures and reminiscing about the trip and thinking about him and stuff, and I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, to give you a visual, right now I'm going to show you a picture. What is a picture of him in Jewel Cave that I took. So here's what he looks like in case you're wondering. Yeah, so that's my grandfather. Donald Smith was his name. And yeah, God rest his soul. But yeah, it's just some funny stuff. I got so many stories. My grandfather was a character. He never wore like the right size pants. Okay, here's another little mini story. This is lovely. Okay, never wore the right size pants ever. So when he got in the car, they were too tight. Okay, they're too small for him, so he couldn't sit comfortably. So he'd have to like unbutton his pants. All right. So every single time we had to stop for something, he'd get out of the car. Okay, and while he's getting out of the car, his pants would like fall down. Okay, not like to his ankles, but they'd totally fall off his butt. Okay, and the man, I don't know why, but he never ever wore underwear. Okay, which I, you know, involuntarily figured out. Okay, after getting out of the car so many times with him. And yeah, he'd just be like, oh, moon's out early. There you go. And he just did not care what people thought. He really didn't care. It's all about, like, look, I'm going to be comfortable. You don't want to see my butt or you don't want to see my junk. Don't look, you know? And here's a totally separate story on top of that. Is one of the nights we stayed in a motel. And I was changing my socks, okay, in the morning. And he happened to get out of the bathroom and walk over completely naked. Just bare bones naked, okay, to go grab his watch off the counter to bring back into the bathroom because he was, you know, putting all the stuff. I guess he thought I was still asleep. I kid you not. No disrespect of a dead man, okay, but when he got out of the bathroom, just a quick glance at him, and it reminded me of the great apes from Congo that used to scare the crap out of me when I was like 9 years old, okay? Congo is an awesome, awesome movie. Awesome movie, Amy. Okay, and if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know what that reference is, but that's some funny stuff. All right, that's enough for now. I'm talked out. No, actually, I can never be talked out. I can just ramble on forever. Really, I can do it forever. But I'm going to spare you and your ears, you know, a little bit of time here. I'm going to cut the video, and I'm just going to say, yeah, there you go. There's a little insight into my trip to see the Northwest of America with my grandfather. Let me know if you want to see more of these things or hear about specific things. Just some good old times. So anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it as always. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.